part because I get to talk about why I picked the people that I picked. The reason that I picked you, Richard, is because you kind of remind me of a kid in a candy store when it comes to this world of disruption and technological change. And so, I don't often meet people with the amount of unparalleled or with the amount of unrestricted hopefulness and optimism that I see in you when it comes to having these conversations and embracing new technologies, and yes, understanding the problems, but also like really celebrating what these solutions are doing for us. And so to some degree, you and I had a pretty critical conversation where, I was expressing to you some of my angst about AI and my fears about the future. And I felt like it was actually like maybe technological therapy. I don't know, something like that, where, you kind of helped me to realize like, yeah, it's a tool. And, a person can take a machete and they can use it to chop somebody, or they can use it to, better their lives by, cutting obstacles out of their way. And so really don't just spend time on the doom and gloom, but let's spend time on the beautiful things that are happening. And so you have that effect on me. I think you have that effect on other people. And I think also with your expertise on LinkedIn, you have something, you have a gift to give and an impact to make in terms of helping publishers, even just tying you back to Kenny. Kenny's talking about we need to become facilitators of conversations. We need to be out there in the community, connecting communities. And that is so much like the true underlying power of LinkedIn is the ability to do that in some amazing ways. And so part of what you're going to be doing is equipping people with that. So now a little bit lead in. So this is our first summit. Never done a summit before. Didn't know what we were doing. Learned a lot. But I also, this is the first time we've had a sponsor. Richard Bliss, right at the last minute. This was yesterday. We had a conversation, and he decided to step up and sponsor the conference, which is incredible. I'm incredibly grateful, especially coming from somebody who I've watched be a giver to the publishing community. Right. So you've been, most of the times that you've spoken or presented have been unpaid. You obviously have a desire to equip and to empower and to strengthen and teach people within this community. And so our rule is when I have people presenting that they don't get to spend time presenting about their products. Richard gets an exception there. He gets a few minutes to talk about a product, but that product that he's talking about is relevant in every single way to the conversation that we're having today, which is, and specifically those two core values that I shared. One of them was innovation. In other words, equipping publishers to innovate. And the other was partnership, which is coming alongside publishers to empower them. Right. And so I'll let you go ahead and at your discretion, talk about the offering, the specific offering that you're having for publishers for a few minutes. And then you'll be able to continue with the overall presentation you have to build us up and help us get better at using LinkedIn as organizations. So,
yeah, let's flip that, Johnny. Let's at the end, because this was kind of the last minute and I realized I wanted to give here. I don't normally in my presentations, and I do a lot of them, I don't normally talk about my services per se. So let's do it at the end. And let's have you remind me. Otherwise I'm going to forget.
Perfect.
It's usually not a high priority.
So, and so you're talking to Caleb because Caleb's the reminder. So Caleb,
Caleb, just remind me that.
Can do.
Let me know. Remind me to do the what I'm here for. Okay. Is that my cue? Am I on?
That's your cue, man. It's all your show now.
All right. I am thrilled to be here. One of the opportunities, we talk about superpowers. And so I started thinking, all right, what's my superpower? Well, I have some unusual superpowers. I'm going to just admit that this is not my ego or anything, but a couple of things. So here's what I'm going to share with you. I had an opportunity of participating at I think it was a CRMA event in Columbus, Ohio last year. And across the street, there were a conference in downtown Columbus that had 14,000 people attending it at the Columbus Convention Center. And what was interesting is that as we were presenting across the street, this event was happening where I'm kind of famous. And the reason I'm kind of famous is because when it comes to board games, I'm fairly well known in the board game industry for having, for over a decade, taught individuals how to use crowdfunding to raise money for their board games. And so here you're seeing am I sharing my screen, Johnny? Have I started sharing my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, perfect. I just want to make sure that, so there we go. So that was a little bit of my board game collection, a little bit of it. And I've been well known. So what was fun was that while I was there, I walked across the street and had a lot of people recognize and know who I am. So I guess kind of board games would be one of I have a Twitter handle called The Game Whisperer, helping families and individuals find out what's the perfect game, especially with the holidays coming. So this has nothing to do with what we're about to present on. In addition, I have a fairly unique setup. Behind me is not a green screen. Behind me, as you see me on the video, is my background. I but I feel like it. For the last 3.5 years, I have been in a tent as my office, and that tent has evolved. The picture on the right you're seeing is early on. The one on the left is expanded, and now today this has become a fairly extensive background. So this is my office. It's outside in a tent. I happen to be, Kenny, down the road from you. I happen to be here in Silicon Valley, which is where my company's based out of. Okay, that's a little bit about fun about me. I have been in the tech industry for, as my team refers to it as, since the late 1900s, which is not impressive to anybody. That sounds like floppy disks and covered wagons. But I have been doing this technology thing for a very, very long time, having been at the forefront of many of the trends and industries that have shaped it, from cybersecurity to cloud services. All of this has been something I've been part of. So this LinkedIn thing has been something I've been doing for several years now, helping organizations and individuals understand how to take advantage of it. So let's talk about that. First of all, let's talk about Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Their revenue model is very familiar to you. Their revenue model is the same as your revenue model, mostly advertising. They make money off of keeping us distracted, entertained, and held hostage to their content, right? Doom scrolling is a whole term talking about getting caught up in just, you look up and 45 minutes have gone by and you don't know where those 45 minutes went. This advertising model has driven their algorithms to make sure that it maximizes their profitability, to make sure that you, the product, generate as much revenue for them from their customers, the advertisers. That is not the situation with LinkedIn. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. We're going to talk about, sorry, I need to turn on the air conditioner. It's getting a little warm here in my tent. LinkedIn's business model is radically different, which means that their outcome is radically different. They are looking to generate a conversation amongst world professionals. That's us. They're looking to make sure, They're looking to make sure that you and I are connecting with each other in such a way that it's productive to our business. And oftentimes on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, that means advertising. But on LinkedIn, it's not. It means a very different, fundamental different thing, because only 20% of LinkedIn's revenue is coming from advertising. The other 80% is coming from paying customers who are using LinkedIn Recruiter, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and LinkedIn Premium. That's what it's called. And so this is one of the things that's driving the revenue, which means they aren't looking to have an experience. I mean, think about it. There's a difference between broadcast television and Netflix. It's a very different model. And I don't get a lot of commercials, although that's all changing. They're realizing that maybe they need to run some advertising, but it's a very different model there. So this is something that we need to be focused on. So let's talk about mastering LinkedIn to build trust. What I'm about to show you, if some of you have sat through some of my presentations before, I present this to corporations here in Silicon Valley, multinational companies. LinkedIn has recognized me as one of their top voices on their platform for the content that I'm about to share with you. Johnny, I just need to do a clarification. How much time do I have? When do I need to stop?
All right. So you're going from 11 o'clock to, so 10 your time to 11 o'clock. That's your cutoff. And then we'll do questions after that.
Perfect. All right. As we go along. Now, people feel free to ask questions as I'm going along. You'll have some questions. And I don't mind stopping and interrupting and asking those questions. Okay. I'm going to show you how on LinkedIn, your behavior can generate 10 times more results than what it has been in the past. Here's some of the challenges you're faced with, though. Most of you have company pages. Now, I got to tell you, I've been looking you all up on LinkedIn. You're sitting here. And so I'm like, okay, let's see who's attending this summit. And so I've taken the time to go and look some of your LinkedIn profiles up. And I'm looking at your names right now. And I've gone and looked at your LinkedIn profile. And what I've noticed is a couple of things. I am not going to call anybody out. That I do that in private training. I call it social shaming. It's very effective, but I'm not going to do that here. But what I am going to say is go look at your LinkedIn profile right now and see how you're presenting yourself. I saw one that said, I am a profit-driven individual. Well, that's great, unless you're talking to customers, because now your customers, they don't want to be talking to a profit-driven individual. They want to be talking to somebody who's is interest, just like we heard, interested in them and their value, not in extracting as much revenue for profitability from them. Also, if you're seeing gray boxes around your company link, that means there's a broken link. Your company page doesn't exist, or it has no longer been attached to your personal LinkedIn profile. Go take a look at that. But here's something to be aware of, that when you post something on your LinkedIn company page, LinkedIn only shows that to about 2% of that audience. I have been recently aggressively testing this just to confirm, and it is true. You get about a 1 to 2%. You got 2,000 followers, you're probably going to get about 20 views or impressions on your post. 20,000 followers, you're going to get about 200 impressions on your post. That's a tiny fraction of your audience for the amount of work you did to drive people to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about how to change your model and think differently about building trust and reaching an audience on LinkedIn. Now, why would LinkedIn do this? Well, it's pretty obvious. If you were given unlimited access to those 2,000 people following your post, what would you do? Well, I know what you'd probably do. You'd start flooding them with content and announcements and ideas and driving them to events and webinars and summits and everything. And LinkedIn's like, that is not our business model here. Our business model is to work with professionals and make sure they connect to each other. Companies, we're going to let you in on the conversation, but we're not going to let you dominate the conversation. So you only get a 2% reach. Now, with that said, individuals get a 10% reach. So if you've got 1,000 connections, let's say you're Johnny and you're super famous there. And you've got, let's say, 1,000 connections. Johnny, you'll have to tell us how many connections. I didn't look it up. How many connections you have?
About 1,400.
Okay, so Johnny's got about 1,400. So by default, when Johnny makes a post on LinkedIn, it's going to go about to 140 people. Okay, I'm going to pause here because this sounds really odd. Why would LinkedIn hide your content from 90% of your audience on Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitter? Those social media platforms are trying to show your content to as many people as possible in order to drive maximum revenue dollars of their content. But on LinkedIn, it's the exact opposite. They're trying to show your content to as few people as possible in order to keep the platform, I don't want to say pure, but clean, focused. And so they're not going to let you just spew out whatever you want as often as you want to whoever you want. Nope. You get about a 10% reach. Then what they're going to do is they're going to check to see if that post that you put out there matched their business model, which is to start a conversation. I already identified that right from the beginning. Did your content get people talking to each other? Now, we're not talking about company content right now. We're talking about personal content. Did you get people talking to each other? That's what they're trying to determine with that 10%. Now, other people can do this other than the 10%, but this is the goal here. Are you getting people to pay attention? Okay. Here we go. Here's some bad news. Well, this was kind of bad news to start with, but here's some bad news. You really only get about one post a day, maybe two, but it needs to be at least 8 to 12 hours apart, which means you could get one in the morning and one in the afternoon, but I strongly discourage it because when that second post goes out, LinkedIn's going to demote the first post, meaning it's going to slow down the reach. So you really, primarily, this is individual posts. You get one post a day. This applies to your company pages as well. One post a day is about the most if you want to get the maximum reach. But I've got some bad news. I know I already said that, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it a couple more times. If there's a link in the post, LinkedIn's going to reduce the audience by 50%. Say it isn't so. It's so. 50% reduction because you're driving their audience to someone else's platform. I mean, think about it. Think about if you were to put a post out on your for your publication and you put a link into your competitor's publication. That doesn't make sense. And you certainly wouldn't want to do that. You don't want your audience going somewhere else. LinkedIn does not want that either. They want the conversation to stay here, even if you're sending them to a blog or particularly a YouTube video. If it's a YouTube video, it's going to be an 80% reduction in the audience because they do not want their customers, their members, going somewhere else. Okay. I kept saying there is more bad news. If you make a post on your company page and you ask your employees to repost it, LinkedIn hides those reposts from 99% of the audience and only shares it to 1% of the audience. That sounds crazy. Let me see if I can come up with an analogy. Because what's happening here, think about if you had let's go back to a newspaper or a magazine. And let's suppose on the first inside front cover, you have an article. And then about 3 pages later, you have the exact same article. And then about 4 pages later, you have the exact same article. And then about 5 pages. I mean, after a while, your magazine is going to be full of the exact same article. It's kind of the same way on LinkedIn. If you make a post and then somebody shares it, it's simply duplicated the conversation. It has not added to the conversation. It actually hasn't added any value at all to the overall conversation. So LinkedIn's going to limit the ability for you to pollute their platform with multiple copies of the same content. So what they're going to do is they're going to let you share it, but they're going to hide it from 99%, showing it to 1% of your audience. Now, Jacob's got a question here. So should we post the entire article blog post and hope the users hit our site? I think what you're asking is, should we put the content then on LinkedIn where the audience already is, letting the conversation happen there? I think that's what your question is. I'm going to say yes. That's what we talk about, is to use that. Now, when you say the entire one, no, there are ways around this. I'm going to demonstrate some ways around that. There are some ways to do that. So let's also talk about linking though, too. Generally speaking, if you have a link and you need to send people to a link, it is recommended. Here's several ways to do it. One, you can just add the link in there and boom, it's going to get a 50% hit, but maybe you don't care. And there are reasons. I dive deeper into this on advanced sales training on why you might want to include a link and take that 50% hit, but that goes into a different training that we do. Number two, you can add the link in the comments. And you see people doing this. The link's in the comments. And so what happens then is that they'll say, hey, if you want to click on it, click on the link below. That bypasses the penalty. But what happens if somebody does repost your post? Comments don't follow. And so the link's not following. Or if you happen to get a really popular post and there's 100 comments, the link is buried somewhere in all those comments. The third option is the one I recommend. Make the post go live. Don't include the link. Click the edit button, edit the post, add the link, resave the post. Easy peasy. Don't have to wait. There's no penalty. And the link is now in there. Okay. So let me just repeat what I just said. My recommendation is write up your post, make it go live. Your audience can now see it. You don't have to wait any amount of time. Just click the 3 buttons, edit the post, add the link at the bottom, resave the post, and there you go. So that's just an easy way of making that happen. Okay. All right. Johnny says, I've started seeing people write link instead of link in their posts. Does LinkedIn penalize? No, that's dumb. I'm just telling you, that's dumb. People are trying to game the system, and this is dumb. Yeah, you're welcome. Great dumb question. Sorry, Johnny. I didn't mean you asked the dumb question, but great question. Okay. All right, here we go. Good news. When the post goes live, LinkedIn starts grading literally grading your post to determine how valuable of a conversation you actually started. And it's using a numerical scoring system to do that. So every time somebody likes your post, all right, you're getting 1 point of value. Why 1 point of value? Because that's the least valuable interaction you can do on LinkedIn. So they give you the least valuable number of points. Likes, They're not 100% worthless, but their worthlessness is maybe a little greater than zero. It's not zero, but it's a little, my point here is that like that we are trained by Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook, it means nearly nothing on LinkedIn. You did not add to a conversation. Imagine if we're sitting around having a conversation. Johnny says a funny story, and he looks over at me, and I do a thumbs up. There you go. Good job. I mean, did I add? You got my point. Here's something that's interesting, though. I just said that reposting hides the post from 99% of your audience. That is true. But it does indicate to the algorithm that the post, your content, is interesting enough that it got their attention to cause them to take an action greater than liking. They hit the repost button. You got 6 points of value, 6 times more than a simple like. But, ladies and gentlemen, for your entertainment in the center ring, the best way to generate value for your posts is to truly start a conversation with comments. Comments, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later here, are the secret weapon. You talk about superpower on LinkedIn, commenting is the superpower, far above anything else. We are trained to create content and drive our audience to our content. LinkedIn's like, nope. What we're going to train you to do is participate in conversations and reward you for participating in those conversations. So Kenny's going to ask a question here. So the algorithm doesn't pick up the link in the edited post. Nope, it does not. In the past, about 6 months ago, the algorithm does change. About 6 months ago, editing your post generated a penalty. But they changed that. You now get 2 free edits without a penalty, for spelling errors. But you guys are all publishers. You already have an editor. It didn't have a spelling error. Otherwise, well, I'm being facetious. So now you can actually do an edit, 2 edits for free without the penalty being incurred. Okay. Yes, commenting is the superpower. Let me explain the numbers you see here in front of you. If Kenny made a post and I liked what he had to say, and I go and leave a comment. Now, there's 2 different types of comments. Congrats. Well done. Good job. That doesn't even hardly count as a comment on LinkedIn. We're going to come back to that. But I leave a comment. Kenny, excellent commentary here. I really like what you had to say about this topic because as I see it with my own customers, we're finding this solution working well as well. I'm going to be sure to share that with them. Thank you for posting this. Okay, there's a comment that is unusual in its length and its focus and its specificity. I think you understood the word I said. Edit that in post there, Caleb. All right. I'm going to leave a comment on Kenny's post. My comment's going to give Kenny's post 7 points of value. Kenny, being a well-trained LinkedIn guru, is going to respond to my comment. His comment's also going to generate 7 points. But guess what? He just boosted the value of my comment by nearly 50%. It's now worth 9 points. Then we've got Amy. She chimes in. She's like, Richard, I really like what you had to say because we're seeing that same thing as well. She's literally commenting on my comment. Her comment's worth 7 points, but because my comment started a conversation on its own, it's nearly doubled now, and my comment now adds 11 points of value to Kenny's post. That sounded a little convoluted, but here's the breakdown. If you can start a conversation between you and the author and amongst the audience themselves, you can get 10 times the value on that interaction than you can with a like. A couple other things that are adding to the value, the numerical score that LinkedIn's watching. Dwell time. How long did people spend on your post? Broetry Bros. The Broetry Bros have been aware of this and gaming the system for a while. LinkedIn is unhappy with the Broetry Bros. What is Broetry? Well, you know what I'm talking about. Line space, line space, line space, line space. And it's just like fluff. Oh, I was thinking the other day, space, about something really important, space, that really has an impact on you, space. I know it might make you the point here, right? They don't really say it. They're just like line space, line space. That is increasing dwell time, thereby trying to game the system so that people have to spend more time scrolling through their post to get to the bottom to figure out what the bleep are they talking about. LinkedIn has been attacking these Broetry Bros. They've been attacking them because of their commenting strategy. They use pods. I do not use pods. These are paid or artificially groups that do nothing but comment on each other's content to do nothing but game the system. This little commenting breakdown I have has been a change over the last several months as they go after those pods. They're also going after the Broetry Bros by modifying dwell time. If you click the see more button, you do get 2 more points of value. So make sure you have written enough content that for people to click that. Johnny thinks he's a Broetry Bro. Maybe. But we already learned that you can take it, Johnny, that you've got that openness and humbleness to have your team tell you when don't be touching that. All right. The last thing here is velocity. How quickly did all of this happen? And this is probably of all of it, the single most important aspect. I could try to get a bunch of comments over a 24-hour period. And LinkedIn's like, that's really not that important. But if I can get it over a first 60 minutes, now the velocity kicks in. It's actually about 60 to 90 minutes. And here's the secret. If you can get 10 comments in the first hour, and remember, as the author, your comments count, and LinkedIn's watching. Did you post and ghost? Did you just put it out there and then walk away? If you did, LinkedIn's like, he's not here. Let's not give him that much value. But if you're interacting and responding, hence the increase in the value. When somebody leaves a comment, you respond, you're adding value, they're adding value, and it's being augmented. You're going to get a minimum of 1,000 people to look at that post in the next hour. Now, Johnny said he's got over 1,000 impressions. That doesn't matter. You could have, 1,000 connections. Doesn't matter. The size of your network does not matter here. It's a score regardless of the size of your network. 10 comments, and you're an intern, you've just come out of the university, you got 32 connections, doesn't matter. I put out a post. I got a lot of people following and paying attention to me. If I don't get 10 comments, LinkedIn's probably not going to show it to anybody beyond a small test group. So this is all about you driving a conversation amongst your audience. Okay? We're doing good? I think we're doing good. I'm going to pause there. Any questions? All right. Caleb, maybe a better question is for later. What's behind the curtain look at how this kind of research gets done to figure out what's effective and what's not? Well, the research, that's a great question. Because none of you can prove me wrong, I just make it up and then y'all have to believe me. No, that's not true. My company sponsors the largest algorithm research report every year. We put that report out every year. I will make a link available here. Caleb, if you'll remind me, I'll put a link into the chat that allows people to download that research report and take a look at it from last year. Now, some changes have happened, and this year's report's due out October, but we might delay it because there's been a lot of changes lately. Now, with that said, I also aggressively test. I'm in the middle of a test this week, testing company pages to see if we can break out of that 2% and figure out how to do that. And one of the ways I do that is I have people, and Johnny's aware of this, who subscribe to a weekly LinkedIn tip I send out by text. This week, I've asked some people to go and leave comments on company pages to test that out. So that's what's going on there. And so Amy's asking, how do you get 10 comments? Try to set it up in advance with a friend or coworker to post and pray. Excellent question. We're a little ahead in the presentation, but I'm going to show you. We call them social squads. They're not pods, but they're a way to get those 10 comments and to start systematizing it so that people are prepared and understand what you're asking them to do. Great question, Amy. And then Kenny says, I'm not sure if I missed this, but if there's a golden hour, is there a good day of the week or time to post, especially if ideal covering East and West Coast? This question is often asked because it has to do with the way we think about the other social media platforms. Because that question really is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. What's the best time to post that the most people will see my post? But on LinkedIn, remember, it's 10%. So you're going to get 10% no matter what time of the day. The question really is, what time or what day do I anticipate that most people will leave a comment? That's a very different question than when most people will see it. It used to be Wednesdays at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when we all came back from work, sat down in our cubicle and sat food coma. Now with COVID over, hybrid work, it tends to be Tuesdays and Thursdays between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m. local time. So if you're doing an East Coast, West Coast, you'll probably want to do 7:30 East Coast, 10:30, or 8 o'clock West, 8 o'clock West Coast, 11 a.m. East Coast. And then Saturdays and Sundays tend to do well as well, which is surprising because people have the time to comment. But this is only marginally better. It's not significantly better. It's marginally better. So don't stress too much about the time and day because it's going to be 10%. And so it doesn't really matter, but it's, can I get those comments? And am I in the position to respond to those comments? This is one of the problems with setting up an automatic posting schedule. LinkedIn doesn't like it because you're not present. You are posting and ghosting. Okay. Yeah. One of my people most likely to comment. Okay. Here's an example. Matt put out a post. He broke all the rules. He clicked the share button. He used an external link and there's no text for anybody to read. Ask me anything with almost anything. I told Matt, this is all wrong. The post was up for 4 days when I came to him and said, we're going to repost. Now I took this screenshot when it was up for a month. 6 people liked it. So he got maybe 20 impressions on this post. We did is, and this goes back to the earlier question, rather than making people watch the video or go somewhere to get the information, put it in front of them. The audience is sitting right here. Give them what they want. What they want is they want to know what you want them. They want to know what you want them to know. Give it to them. Don't make them watch the video. And if you're going to give them a video, upload it natively and put in subtitles because all of us use our social media with the sound turned off. Now, Matt wrote about this is about 150 words, 200 words. He used some hashtags. Now, hashtags, I'm not going to address that. We address that in more advanced training, and it's being changed by the algorithm over the last 30 to 60 days. He also got he got more than 10 comments. Now that the audience had something to talk about, he got 70 comments in 8 hours and generated 4,500 impressions on his post. I'm telling you, if you use the platform where the audience already is. Willie Sutton was asked, why do you rob banks? And he gave an answer, allegedly. That's because that's where the money is. Why should I be posting content on LinkedIn? Because that's where your audience is, and they all have money. The people you're trying to get to open their checkbooks, to spend money on your sponsoring, on your advertising, or whatever it might be, they're on LinkedIn and they're paying attention. They might not be posting, but they're paying attention. Another quick example, I think some of you have seen this. On the left, Marcus got mentioned in Forbes, and he did what every single person on Forbes would do. He threw the link up on LinkedIn and said, hey, look, I'm talking about remote work. Now, he's got 9 comments down there. Think about this. Do you believe those 9 comments? Listen to this scenario and tell me what you think about this scenario. Those 9 people, he probably got several hundred people to see the post, maybe even 1,000. But those 9 comments, they clicked on the link, which took them to Forbes. There are 15 people here talking. So they waded through the 14 people, found Marcus, read what Marcus had to say, came back to LinkedIn, found Marcus's page again, and then left an insightful comment about what they read and how important and valuable they found it. What do you think? I'm guessing no. What do you think those comments really say? Get a guess. Throw it into chat. What do the comments actually say, do you believe? Yep. Congrats. This is great. Thanks for sharing. Congrats. The superpower of LinkedIn being squandered because they did nothing but do a throwaway comment because we're trained by the other social media platforms that we are talking to the author. That is not the case on LinkedIn. Every single one of those 9 comments that said, congrats, nice post, got picked up and put in front of that individual's network. So if that was Elaine left a comment that said, congrats to Marcus. Elaine's comment would be picked up and put in front of Elaine's network. And all they would see is congrats. Well, it's about what? Why are you congratulating them? What did they say that was so important? And what do you want me to know is what your network is asking when they see that comment come across their feed. We're going to talk about this. This is why the commenting is a superpower, and most of us are squandering it. By the way, here's Hang on the other side. Took Marcus's content, read it, rewrote it, put it in front of her audience, which is kind of the similar. She works for Marcus, similar audience, and started a conversation. Yeah, she started a conversation because in a week, she generated 65,000 impressions on her post. It's the same content. She just took it and gave the audience something to talk about, and they did. All right. Let's talk about different types of content and how they drive conversations. Here are three things: articles, docs, and polls. Articles, long form, think of them as blogs on LinkedIn, are not promoted at all on LinkedIn. If I have 110,000 followers on LinkedIn, if I was to publish an article right now, maybe 100 people would see it. Not 100,000, 100. LinkedIn does almost near zero promotion of your articles on your company page or on your personal page. Almost zero. So how do you use them? Well, there's a couple of ways. One, they just changed something in the last 30 days. Those articles are now indexed by Google. They didn't used to be. So start putting out those articles, and they allow you to do some SEO title and an SEO description rather than the default from the article. So that's all brand new. We go deeper into that into our advanced training. If you're going to use an article, realize you probably want to do a newsletter. LinkedIn, if you have creator mode turned on, allows you to turn your articles in a newsletter that is sent to LinkedIn users and to their email accounts. But if you don't have newsletters turned on, the creator mode, you're getting zero exposure from those articles. Docs, on the other hand, docs are basically PowerPoints, PDFs, presentations. You upload it. It took me years to have the courage to click on those docs and figure out what they were. I hate to admit that, but it did. But my book, Digital First Leadership, I was working on the cover. I didn't know what cover to use. So I picked 5 of the covers, threw them up into a PDF, put each image in a single pane, and then asked my audience, it's not a poll, but it was a poll. It was, hey, tell me which one you like the best. I got 135 comments. 42,000 people saw my book covers and gave me a huge exposure for something I was doing. So that's something that you can do with documents. Now I'm going to go back to Caleb's question. Would it be better to post articles on your own site and your own newsletter so you can own your distribution rather than relying on LinkedIn? That is not an either or. That is yes to both. Publish it on your own site, publish it in your own newsletter, and publish it on LinkedIn. It's not an either or. Take advantage of LinkedIn's automatic distribution and then modify it a little bit, and then tell people. And if you'd like to read let's suppose you summarize it a little bit more than a summary though. And you say, if you'd like to read the full article, here's the link at the bottom, because you're not being penalized for links in those articles. So you can do a part 2. Here's part 1. If you'd like to read the full part, here's the link. Go to our website, because you're not going to be penalized for that. That's a great way to do that. Great question, Caleb. Thank you. The third one here are polls. And polls have been frustrating because the first year they came out last year, the year before, they flooded our feed. And I was like, do you like coffee or tea? What's your favorite color? I mean, it was dumb stuff. I had one guy putting out a poll every day, and he was just thrilled because all these people are paying attention. Like, yeah, but you're also flooding the feed of every person with these dumb polls. And so if you're going to use a poll, realize it will get in front of an audience and it will drive a conversation, but make sure it's driving valuable conversations. In this case, again, I had the book coming out. So I asked, now I kind of knew the answer, but I asked him, what would you prefer? Physical, ebook, audio read by the author. And I got some interesting, I got 59 comments. People are talking to me. Yeah, they took the poll, they voted, but they talked to me and spoke to me about it. And we ended up with a physical book, an ebook, and an audible book that is read by the author. You can listen to my dulcet tones softly, gently as you go to sleep at night. If you go get the audible book now. Go. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Funny enough. All right. Here's one other thing I want to show you. Devin Thorpe, good friend of mine, very popular. He's into philanthropy, has a fantastic YouTube channel, but I could not get him to stop posting his YouTube videos to LinkedIn. Here's one. 3 likes. Dude, after 10 months, stop doing this. But it was easy. He just didn't have the time to do it. So finally, I got him to change his approach. Here's the post he put out. Okay. First of all, there's no imagery. Imagery tends to depress or suppress the reach of your post. Imagery, stock imagery that's coming from, that's a whole different topic. He tagged 3 organizations: the Salt Lake Tribune, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Rotary International. So he wrote a post about a story in a publication, something that one of your people could do. But instead of putting a link and doing all of that, what he did, he started a conversation in a different way. Now, before we go on, here's a question I have for you. He tagged the Salt Lake Tribune. He tagged the Mormon Church, and he tagged Rotary International. How many people at those organizations were notified that they were mentioned in Devin's post? How many people? Caleb says 1%. Caleb, you're very close. Take off the percent. 1. Thank you, Amy. Who? Amy, who is that one person at each of these organizations that got mentioned? Who are they? Owner of the account. An intern that was hired to manage the LinkedIn page. That's who got notified. So be aware that if you're going to tag some organization, they're not seeing it. Just the owner of the account is seeing it. Just be aware of that. Also be aware of this, and this is a terrible habit that so many people are using out there: mass tagging. If you tag someone in a post and they fail to respond through engagement to your post, LinkedIn will penalize your post and demote it because you are spamming an individual. I mean, think about it this way. If I was to tag Johnny in my post and it didn't even, and Johnny didn't even come to comment or engage or like it, the algorithm saying, Richard, the person you even mentioned didn't find your post interesting enough. Why would we share it with anybody else? And they will demote your post. This mass tagging, I get tagged all the time, mass tag. I hate it. It's a terrible behavior. And they don't know they're penalizing themselves, that LinkedIn is suppressing that. Yeah, maybe they got my attention, but they just pissed me off. They didn't actually do anything. Instead, do what Devin did. Mention them in the comment where you're not going to be penalized. Amanda, Natalie, for example, this happened to me this morning. An individual who I kind of know, just recently met, commented on a Gary Vee post. And then she asked at the bottom, Richard, what are your thoughts on this? I got notified that I got mentioned in a comment of a post I would have never seen. I got pulled over and I left a lengthy comment because I knew exactly what she wanted me to know. Here's what Devin did. He called out and reached out to people in his network, asking them to leave very specific comments based on questions he asked them. This is one way to get that audience to understand what you want them to say, not just that you want them to say something beyond congrats. He got 139 comments. He also got 102,000 impressions in a week because he started a conversation and brought like-minded people into the conversation who had something to say. So tag people in the comments. Don't tag them in the post unless you really want them to be aware of it. And then, 100,000 impressions in a week. And then, I think I'm getting all that. All right. I'm watching the clock here, and I got to be careful because we're going to run out of time before we run out of content. The PowerPoint's going to be made available through Johnny. The content is being recorded, so I have a chance to do that. By the way, when it comes to views and impressions, video's the worst for reach. Why? Because none of you watch a video and leave a comment. You don't. You click the like button and move on, thereby indicating to the LinkedIn algorithm that you have given this the least amount of value by clicking the like button and moving on. You did not leave a comment. This is why video struggles to have a wide reach. Now, there are outliers. There are exceptions, but usually because the video did something to start a conversation. Staged photos, stock photos, corporate photos, marketing photos, branded photos. These tend to cause people to click like and move on. They do not start a conversation. You saw that picture of my tent. When people were talking about working from home, I threw that picture of my tent up on LinkedIn. Do you think people left comments about the tent? Absolutely. The photo itself became the picture, became the story. The photo itself became the picture. That's kind of obvious. It became the story. People started commenting because of what they saw. But so often our content, like I showed Devin, shows generic content that's full of information that's not going to cause anybody to interact in a positive way. And then oftentimes text only does best to drive a conversation. Now, here's a little thing that I can share. Let's see, we got one more comment. Is there a timer that someone has mentioned needs to respond by, but they get penalized? Not everyone active on LinkedIn hourly. Yeah, you got an hour. If they don't respond within an hour, yeah. Now, penalty is if you've tagged them and they didn't respond, yeah, you got about an hour to 90 minutes if they didn't respond. So just be sensitive to that. If you're going to be tagging people, be aware that they might not be able to respond. Also, sometimes give them a heads up. Not always, but usually when I get blindly mentioned, I'm like, okay, you got my attention, but you better not have wasted my attention. I just threw a whole bunch of information at you. This phone number, Johnny subscribes to it. If you send a text message with the hashtag LinkedIn to that phone number, I think we can probably drop it into the chat. You get automatically signed up, and I'll send you text messages once a week, a text message of a tip, a lot of this content that you're already seeing. Thank you very much. Caleb threw it up in there. This gives you a chance I'm not selling you anything. You're not going to be pitched on anything. There's about 350 people right now who subscribe to this, customers, clients, people who just want to stay up to date on the algorithm changes, that type of thing. I decided I have a newsletter and things like that, but this is just kind of short, sweet, comes to your phone and it reminds you. Okay. Thank you. Let's talk about the power of commenting. We've got about 15 more minutes before we're going to turn it over to flat out Q&A. Hopefully everybody stuck around. Looks like it. We still got some people paying attention. I'm always pleased with that. It's hard because I normally like to ask questions, get some feedback here, but I appreciate the comments that have been coming in. Okay, let's talk about the power of commenting. When you comment on LinkedIn, it's fundamentally different. Every single comment you make goes in front of your audience. I comment on Johnny, my audience sees my comment. If Johnny responds, his audience sees my comment and his response. If there's 1,000 comments and I leave a comment, my audience will only be notified of my comment. So be aware that your comments should be speaking to your network, not just the author. Now, if Johnny made a post and I left a comment, he's going to be thrilled that I left a comment, but do I really need to tell him how great a guy he is? He's a great guy. He knows it. What I am going to do is explain to my audience why I'm commenting while I talk to Johnny, because I know they're listening over my shoulder. They're kind of listening in. And so we need to make sure that we don't use these throwaway comments, but use them differently. Here's an example. This is an event, the Anita Borg Grace Hopper celebration event. And a post was made by Lisa. So Amy left a comment. I watched this presentation, the 8 factors you presented for making them possible were possible spot. Oh, I love the hot dog girl. Thanks for bringing this here. She's not just talking to Lisa, but she's also talking to her audience, because her audience is going to get to listen in on this post, making it possible. Here's how you structure a comment. The first thing is acknowledge the author. Then restate a key point. And then take the time to provide your own insights. Do this okay, let's speak bluntly here about your need to get your content in front of your regional audiences. Well, the first thing you should be doing is having your company page or you commenting on the topics of the people in your community who are sharing content. Go leave a comment, and not just a congrats. I've already hammered that one into you. Leave a comment where you add value. This will draw awareness to you and your organization. So here's my homework for you. It's a 3x3 strategy. 3 times a week, go leave 3 comments on 3 different individuals, right? So I know the math doesn't add up, but 3x3 sounds good. And 10 comments a week sounds easy to remember. So pick one of those, either 3x3 or 10 comments. I probably need to fix this so the math adds up. Who should you be commenting on? Colleagues, people on this call, first degree connections, second and third degree connections, but they're talking about the very things. I mean, let's suppose you're looking for an advertiser. for your publication. And there's a major, let's say it's an accounting firm in town, or it's a manufacturer, or it's a business, and they've had an announcement. Maybe they've celebrated something and they've posted it to LinkedIn. That is a freaking open invitation for you to go participate in the conversation. But remember, you're not just talking to the author. You're talking to your audience, because you're going to leave a comment that congratulates them, explains why that's a congratulations, what value you find in their organization, and some insights that you provide. Maybe it's insights about, being a longtime contributor to the community. We know you've done such a great job. It's been great to see the growth and success of your organization. This is something that we like to celebrate. And so we'd love to be able to share that with our audience. And then you can hit the repost button and share it to your company page. They don't know that it hardly went to anybody. They just know that you paid attention to them. This gets you in front of them. This commenting, I'm telling you, the commenting strategy cannot be overstated. Let me give you an example, a visual example. This individual went through my corporate training. They were dutifully resharing corporate content every week. You can see when they went through our training, they stopped. And all they did for a week as a test based on the homework I gave them was to leave 3 comments a day for 3 days. They got more people to look at their LinkedIn profile in a week than they had in the previous 90 days combined. I'm telling you, if you take time to put together a commenting strategy, you can actually have that drive awareness to your posts, your content, and other types of material that you're putting out there. Now, I've got about 9 more minutes here, and I'm realizing I'm going to apologize. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I kind of have the wrong slide for what I wanted to do to answer the question about how to work together as a team. So if you'll give me just a second, I'm going to pull this up and show you how to work together as a team. While I'm doing this, as I'm scrambling to recover and actually pretend that I know what I'm doing here, I do know what I'm doing, but I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to bring up a presentation. Any questions I can answer for you at this point? No?
Got a comment, but not a question, so I'll wait.
Sure. What's the comment?
I've started thinking about profile views as leads because in some sense,
yes, profile views as leads. Pay attention to who's looking at your LinkedIn profile because you got their attention, and now go back and engage with them, like them, comment them. You don't have to send a connection request right away. That should be the last thing you do. Sending connection requests is the last thing that you should be doing. You should be engaging with their content in such a way that you get their attention. Here, let me show you. Let me show you how to do that. Now I'm jumping around, but that's okay. We've already shown that. I call this the give before asking. Okay, I'm going to push through a couple of things here. Normally, we have training. This is the pitch. I do a 3-hour training that's broken up into multiple sessions. Normally, I do this for corporations. The thing I needed Caleb to remind me of is that I'm offering this as an open enrollment. If you'd like to send somebody from your organization to training, this gives you, you don't have to bring me in. Corporations pay me a lot of money to come in. Instead, this would give you access to the same training. We call it train the trainer. I will train somebody from your organization in this open enrollment for them to go back and train your organization to take advantage of a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing here right now. That's the pitch. We can figure out how to get the details to you later. Okay, this give before asking. If they've looked at your profile, if they're a prospect, go like it. Go like their content. Go leave a comment. I already talked about this. Suppose John Anderson, who's, I don't know what he does, but suppose he's a prospect that you want to get some attention to. Maybe he's running a cybersecurity company in your local organization. You want him to pay attention or be an advertiser. Danielle's trying to sell him something. So she went and left a comment, tagged John, left a comment, and John engaged. She didn't know John. John didn't know her. But after this little conversation, before she even sent the connection request, she has a chance of now engaging. Let's suppose you have an event coming up. Leah and Kira, 2 members of my team, they got a hold of they registered for the event and then started commenting on the individuals who were going to the event beforehand. Comment for 2 weeks. Didn't even mention the event. Didn't mention our services. Showed up the event. 80 of the, we identified 80 prospects out of the 500. All of them accepted a connection request at the spot because they had been engaging and they knew who Leah and Kira were because they'd been seeing this conversation happening. And 22 of the 80 accepted a sales call with our salespeople. That's a pretty dang good return. So this is different ways that you can engage with those individuals long before you ask them to connect or anything like that. I've got more examples, but I wanted to jump over to address, I think Amy brought it up, about what we call the social squads. And I'm watching the time. We got about 5 minutes here. Hacking the algorithm, power of commenting. Now let's talk about social squads. And we understand this whole text is generally best. Edit the post to add links. Look for those 10 comments. Remember who you're talking to. You're talking to your network. So make sure the comments aren't directed at the individual, but in a general, using the comments to talk to your network. Here's an example. Call it team boosting. What you're going to do is you're going to pick a topic that's important to your partners, your customers, your prospects, to your community. You're then going to write as a team. You guys got writers on staff. I think that's what you do as a publication. So somebody can probably write this up. If not, they can use AI as a great way of doing it as well. But write it up beforehand. Don't post it. You just write it up. Now what you do is you pick a team member to post it. It's not going to go through the company. It's going to be one of your team members. Then what you do is you schedule a calendar invite for your team members or those people in your community that Amy was asking about. Figure out who this little group is that's going to support you. And you send them a calendar invite and you include a copy of the intended post's text so they know what's coming. And then what you do is everyone crafts their comments ahead of time. Okay, now by crafting their comments ahead of time, they already know what they're going to say. Now, 9 o'clock, Tuesday morning, we're going to make the post go live. We're going to treat it as a live event. We're going to make sure we get those comments within 60 minutes. We're going to make sure the author responds. Now, they don't have to be on for every 10 minutes, they can check in and respond. But here's a little secret. 5 minutes before 9 o'clock, so 8:55 a.m. Let's suppose we pick Johnny. Johnny's going to make an announcement. We're going to pick Johnny. We should have done this for the summit, Johnny. Johnny's going to make a post. He shares it with all of us. Hey, I want you to comment. Here's what I want you to say. Here's what the post is going to be about. But 5 minutes before the calendar invite, he makes the post go live. Then what he does is he updates the calendar invite. You know this calendar invite we sent out? He updates it with a link to the post. And he resends the calendar and he updates the calendar invite. Now, all of us being rather busy and lazy people, we get a calendar invite from Johnny that we already knew about. We open it up and bingo, bango, bongo, there is the link to the post. We already know what we're going to say. We click the link, we leave our comment, and we're happy. Johnny's happy. He responds. Maybe we respond. And it drives a tremendous amount of traffic. Here's a client of mine that did this. They created the post. They uploaded a native picture that was part of the story. And then the comments had already been pre-written and the president knew to respond to these comments. They were trying to get their product in front of the Air Force. It worked. Check this out. Andrew there. Cool story, bro. He's the chief digital officer of the United States Air Force. He responded. One of the very people they were hoping to get the attention to. Now, he didn't realize or he didn't pay attention to the fact that his comment went in front of his audience, but still it was strong enough to make that work. All right. That gives you some ideas on things that you can use to use LinkedIn to be more effective on building trust and a community. So that's what I've tried to do here. Now, I've got a couple of questions that I want to respond to. So, do you ever do this in real time? Post party, everyone gets together on Zoom, post their comments at the same time, and then the comments on each other's. Yes, that's a great, if you want to do that, that's a post party. You can make that happen. I see that happen. Now, be careful. Make sure that these people are leaving comments that mean something. The Broetry Bros, you can see their pods because I can go read, and they've actually, the comments are all generically unique. Oh, this is an excellent post. You've done a great job of sharing your insights. Oh, what a masterful way of sharing your insights. This is an excellent post. Oh, you see what I get? It's unique, but it's generic. Don't do that. Add value to your network. They are listening. What do you want them to know about what you're going to say? Now, piggybacking on Caleb's question, what strategy be used to start edging into the audience you're trying to reach? Let's say as an ad rep trying to break into the law industry to get audience and exposure to eventually be able to sell to. Great question. What you're going to want to do is identify the law firms in town Look for something like Provisors, which has attorneys as part of their business group. Somebody, and now create a list. I got a few minutes, don't I, Johnny?
Yeah.
Let's do this in real time.
Let's do it.
Let's do this in real time. Unrehearsed live demos. We had a joking comment about that, but let's do an unrehearsed live demo and see what happens. Oh, but before we do, here's something fun. I'm going to show this to all of you. I'm going to share this with you. This I call the BlissBot. Has to do with AI. I'm going to drop this into the chat right now. The BlissBot is an AI tool that I have trained on all of my content. The BlissBot allows you to go and ask me, it's not really me, it's a bot, using ChatGPT to talk to me only on my content. So it's not drawing from the ChatGPT database, but it's only drawing from me. So if you go and ask a question of it right now, it'll come up and say, hey, I'm Richard Bliss, and you're talking to the BlissBot. You can ask it a question. Go talk to it. I don't normally hand this out. And I do realize we're recording, so people are going to be able to find it, but feel free to give it a try and see what it does. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to create a list to answer exactly that question. So I'm going to go to LinkedIn here. Let's go to LinkedIn. Come on, go away. LinkedIn. Here we go. Here's my feed. I'm now going to look up some individuals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the search bar. I'm going to hit enter. I didn't search for anything. So a bunch of stuff comes up, random stuff. I'm looking for people. All right. Now a bunch of people come up. Okay. This is just random. But now I'm looking for people who are in a certain area, or let's say a certain industry. I could pick a geography. So let's suppose I picked San Francisco Bay Area. I'm going to pick my local region where Kenny happens to be hanging out. Hey, Kenny, you're up the street from me right now. Okay. Now, here's a bunch of people from San Francisco. Okay, what does that good do me? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and say, maybe they talk about stuff. Or maybe they went to a certain university, or maybe they're in legal services. Okay, I'm going to show those results. Oh, now we're getting a little closer. Now, I still got a whole lot of people here. I got 93,000 people in the San Francisco Bay Area who are in legal, but I can start narrowing it down. Now, here's what I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Again, this is purely for instructional purposes. I don't know any of these people. Maybe I do. They're all second degree connections. So let's suppose, to answer the question, Kari is somebody I want to pay attention to. So what I'm going to do is, I forgot. Dang it. I forgot. Okay. I don't want to connect with her. What I want to do is, okay, hang on. Oh, Johnny, now this is why you don't do unrehearsed live demos.
Is this Jake? Are you answering Jake's question?
Yeah. So now what I want to do is
try to jog your memory, man. So you're trying to break into the legal.
Crap. What I'm going to do here, hang on. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to cheat because I've already done this already for some individuals. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a link. How did I do this? This is from member, add a person's name. All right, let's see if I can go back. This is terrible.
You're good, man. Take your time. You got time.
So now what I want to do is add a person's name. Let's do John. Gosh dang it. I'm going to have to come. I thought I had this. And now, because what I'm going to do. Okay. I do this in my advanced training where I've had time to prepare. So what I've done, I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't, I've frozen. People, come on. What am I trying to do here? What I'm trying to do is create a list of individuals so that I can save it as a search. And now I can come back just under my save searches and I can come down and just save. So I don't know these people I just went and added to a list from member, and that's the difference. Oh, I just figured it out. Okay.
Are you telling me you can create a list? You're about to create a list of people?
I'm about to create a list of people. I'm not using Premium. I'm not using Sales Navigator. I'm going to create a list of people, save them so that I can go back and easily follow them. Here's what I did wrong. Okay.
That would be crazy useful. I would love to know how to do that because
Yeah, so would I. So let's see if I can figure it out. All right. So let's go back to, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to hit search. I'm going to now click on posts. This is what the difference was. I'm looking for posts. And then what I'm going to do is from members, and I'm going to add individuals to this. Okay. So come back to that question. I'm going to have identified a bunch of legal people in my community. And I can do that by searching. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them. So here's what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to the chat. Nope. I'm going to go to the participants. And I'm going to show you how I would do this with the participants. Where are the participants? There they are. Sorry, I got too many monitors up.
You good.
And I'm going to add them. So I got Barney. So I'm going to add Barney. Okay. Barney's going to get added to my list. Let's see if I've got Barney here. I'm going to guess that's Barney. So I just added them to my list. Now I'm going to add another person. I'm going to add, oh, everybody disappeared. I can't see it.
You throw Kieran in there.
I can throw, who else am I going to throw in there?
Kieran, Kieren.
Is it En?
En, yeah. And Keating, Kea.
Okay.
T. There he is.
Okay. I'm going to add him. I'm going to go down and now I'm going to add Laura here. Let's see if I can add Laura Garcia. I'm going to shoot you, Laura. Now what I can do is I can show the results of all of these people I have just saved. I've already identified. I'm going to show the results. So here's all the content from these individuals that I just threw up there.
Yep.
Now I'm going to go bookmark this. I'm going to add it as a bookmark.
Yep.
Bookmark this tab.
And
then I add it to my LinkedIn folder and it's done. Now, when I'm in my browser and I need to go see what those individuals are up to on LinkedIn, I don't have to look them up. I come up here. There's the, I just call it whatever we called it.
Yep.
And boom, there it is. Whatever I called it.
Yeah.
You got the point. So
yeah, man. As a salesperson, that's actually pretty tactical for me. That's
it was pretty chaotic for me as a presenter, and for the audience, they're like, "What is he doing?"
Yeah.
All right.
No, we got there. So, so before we move on, I want to make sure that you got a chance to talk about the offering, the university.
So open enrollment. The idea here is that I will set up a training for a single group of you to go dive deep into the content that I've touched on today. Now, this is normally 2 90-minute sessions. And so what it is that if you're interested, you can sign up. Johnny, let's have them go through you.
Yep.
And we'll send out, when we send this out, he'll announce it. But rather than you paying for me to come to your company, we will sign up and then you'll pay just for a single individual to go to this open enrollment. This is something new that I started doing literally just recently, because I'm starting to talk to a lot of groups who maybe can't, I work with multinationals. They got buckets of money to hire people like me. Yeah. But instead, what I'm able to do is start to offer these skills and sets to an individual from each organization, forming a cohort. And then with that cohort, we can go through the multiple training sessions. So that's the offer. I don't have any other details beyond that. We can make that offer out there. Okay.
Right. And I'll send that out. And then part of, just to even dovetail that back into what this is all about, there's the empowerment piece, because there is, for someone in the publishing space to understand what is the role of LinkedIn in my organization, they're going to need an evangelist, right? There's going to have to be somebody at the organization that cares enough. And when it doesn't work out, it's because of that, right? Like, you've done some great training for people. People have come in, people have benefited from it, but it is tricky for them to gain traction and consistency over time, because they don't necessarily have an owner coming in. And so what you're going to do is you're going to equip a person, anybody who participates, to come back to the organization with the bounty of knowledge that they've received and begin to get traction over time.
With the recording, with the PowerPoint, with the understanding, with the knowledge. And I usually provide an opportunity for them to call me up and say, hey, I got a question. So kind of some free support there. Let's answer a couple of the questions. Caleb asked a specific question about how long does it start getting traction? You've got 150 connections. Okay. First of all, if you make a post today and get 10 comments and you have 150 connections, 1,000 people are going to see that post by tomorrow. Guaranteed. But if you want to really grow your following, start commenting on other people's content. Find conversation 3 times a day, 5 days a week, and you're going to see a dramatic increase in connection requests, follower requests, and people wanting to pay attention to you. And it can happen in a short amount of time. So that's one way to do that. There was another question that I wanted to respond to, and that was B2C versus B2B. B2C is tough on LinkedIn. We are not on LinkedIn as consumers looking for things. That's why you're on Instagram. That's why you're on TikTok. That's why you're maybe on Facebook. They are much more geared towards that. The B2C can be tough on LinkedIn. It's not impossible, but it makes it a lot harder because your audience isn't primed for that kind of interaction.
I have to give a correction here though, but not a correction, but like adding to that, Caleb, when you say B2C, now when a salesperson for a city regional magazine, the city regional magazine is B2C, right? But their sales teams are B2B because
That's correct.
Businesses. So I just don't want there to be a trick that it's not relevant, that LinkedIn's not relevant to those teams, which is what part of why you're here, Richard.
Yeah, if you're trying to sell widgets off of Etsy, this is not the place to do it.
Right.
Okay, but if you're trying to sell to a business from your business for advertising and revenue, this is the place to do it. Go find them, find what they're interested in, find what they're talking about, participate in their conversations. They will be open to talking to you. And then that's how you often do that. How often to post in front of an audience without seemingly annoying. This is the good news. LinkedIn takes care of that for you. You can post every day and your audience isn't going to really notice. So I recommend a minimum of once a week, a maximum of 5 times a week. Here's why. If I post today and that post takes off and it's doing great, and I post tomorrow, LinkedIn shuts down that post from today because it's now using that other post. So watch the reaction and the engagement. If you've got a post that just took off, let it run for a couple of days before you step on it and do another post. Yeah, no more than once. Yeah, don't do it more than once a day, even once a week. Minimum of once a week. Here's why once a week is important. Some of you may connect with me today. Well, guess what? For the next week or two, LinkedIn's going to make sure your content shows up in front of me and my content shows up in front of you every time I go into LinkedIn. Guaranteed. Well, if you only post once a month and you connect with people during that month, you are missing the opportunity of your content being pushed by LinkedIn into their feed. So don't miss that opportunity.
All right, as we wrap up, so we've got 3 more minutes. I'm going to ask one question for you.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm a salesperson, City Regional Magazine, daily newspaper, or business journal, which are the people that are primarily going to be consuming this content. I'm a salesperson at this organization. And I need low-hanging fruit, right? I need low-hanging fruit. Like I need to begin building the habit before I, am all in with LinkedIn. I'm probably not sure what role this has in helping me gain a new advertiser, right? What's one thing to do or one way to look at it that moves me 10 feet ahead?
Commenting.
Okay.
I can't it's commenting. Yeah. Don't worry about creating content. Yes. Don't worry about sending connection requests. Don't worry about posting it. No, go find the leaders of your community.
Yep.
And go find their conversations and start commenting. Now, what happens? Here's a good question. What happens if they don't post content? There is a technique, and I will share that right now. There is a technique to get their attention. Let's suppose you're mentioning somebody, they got mentioned in a publication, or maybe they did a podcast, and one of your business leaders was on a podcast. Okay, because you can go Google their name and podcast guest, and Google's going to show you that popped up. Here's what you can do. Let me show you what you can do. This is a technique. If you want to get there, now this is I said there are all kinds of rules that can be broken. Here's one of the rules that kind of be broken. And that is, this example was a prospect. You can see it, right? Big screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
We see it.
Adir Matu is the CIO of a multi-billion-dollar manufacturing company that a salesperson wanted to get into. He wanted to cold call him. I said, no. So imagine this is a prominent individual in your community that you want to get their attention and get their business, but they're not posting on LinkedIn. I'm guaranteeing you they're on LinkedIn. They're just not posting. All right. Maybe they got mentioned. Maybe they got an award. Maybe they were on a podcast. Maybe something happened. So what you're going to do is you're going to do this. You're going to write a post that looks just like this. I was recently reading an interesting article about Adir Matu, from Adir Matu, a podcast that he was the guest. He's my target. And I'm going to tag him. He has no idea who I am. He pointed out the following. And now you're going to highlight something that individual said that was important. And then I said, this is an issue faced by a lot of companies. My client, NetApps OCI, has addressed this issue head on, and I dropped in the link. How many people do I hope sees my post? One.
Him.
I don't care if I put in the link and it suppresses by 50%. He gets notified. He gets notified by LinkedIn. What does that notification say?
You got mentioned. You got tagged.
Let's be more specific. Richard Bliss mentioned you in a post.
Yeah.
What's the first question he asked himself?
What did he say?
No, that's not the first question. The first question is, who the hell is Richard Bliss? That's the first question. And then the next question is, what did he say about me? I'm telling you, if you use this technique, it will draw in your prospects and your customers and your partners and these individuals you're looking to influence. I had a individual listen to this training and took it. And he said, Richard, I wrote this post. Today I read an interesting post from Martin. He tagged his prospect. Martin wrote the following. I answered Martin's question. Look what happened. Richard, I followed your advice. I created my own post using a piece of my target prospect's post and just mentioned his name. Guess what? It took 1 day for the prospect to reach out to the sales rep. The prospect cold called the sales rep. I'm telling you, if you use this technique to bring value to the people you're trying to influence as a sales rep and not necessarily try just pitching and selling, they're going to respond and be aware of and build a trust relationship here in a digital world that they would not normally have done. So that would be one thing they could do. There we go, John. I gave you a couple. You're on mute. We appreciate it. I see your lips moving.
I'm shooting something in chat that I think lines up. This is actually a podcast I just listened to. It's not specific to LinkedIn. It's about the art of connection, how to build connection with other people. And so much of it has to do with honoring them.
Honoring
right?
them.
Honor them. You honor who they are. And that really softens hearts and breaks down walls to begin to have a relationship. So
they can't avoid it. It's human nature. You're giving to the relationship before you ask for anything. And this is really what honoring them. And by the way, whoever is that podcast, if you wanted their attention, I was listening to an interesting podcast where the host, tag the host, said something really fascinating. Boom. Here's how I see that valuable here. The host is going to get notified on LinkedIn that you mentioned them in a post. They're going to come pay attention to you.
I have to say this. I have consistent interactions with a best-selling author who really impacted me with the book, The Go-Giver, Bob Berg.
Yep.
And now
right?
He knows my name. We've talked on the phone. This is a person where I'm reading his book and thinking, I would never know a person like that.
But you've given through LinkedIn, and he's responded now. And the same thing. How can a person turn that down? We're now going, I want to be sensitive to time. So this has been a lot of fun.